Hey everyone, hope you're enjoying these conversations with Mr. Greg Dickerson. We're talking about 3 traits of self-made real estate millionaires. And here's going to be one. You guys want us to disagree? Here we go. Uh, Greg and I talked about this one, and I think it's topic number 1. And he's like, Michael, you're just wrong. And that is the importance of focus. I believe focus is paramount in the beginning. Greg's like, you're kidding yourself. So let's hear what Greg has to say.
I don't know if I said it quite like that, but yeah, we're gonna take the gloves off now and we're gonna throw down. So I guess what you were saying was it seems like that most of the wealthiest, most successful people stayed in one lane. They either did multifamily or they did office or they did retail and they didn't do all of them. And I said, no, that's not really accurate at all. Most of the most successful people in real estate, especially in development, do all types and classes, not just one. Now, there are people that have been very successful doing just one thing, but the greatest of all time, Sam Zell, he's in a lot of different things. He started in apartments. He started in residential, then went to apartments, did a lot of multifamily, but he also did office retail. He has that. And he also does equity capital with companies. He's opportunistic. And he's, one of the most successful out there. Donald Trump, very prolific, very successful, hotels, casinos, resorts, golf courses. He's been very successful with a lot of different things. Now you can argue that because of his bankruptcies and things like that he went through, but those were different in terms of, the success of the real estate portfolio itself. And, he's a very small player in the whole scheme of things. Larry Silverstein, the World Trade Center developer.
Yeah.
Again, the problem is a lot of these very successful real estate people are unknown. They're not big names.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's the difference. So that's what you really have to go look at is you have to go look at these different companies. SL Green, that's another company. They're office, retail, multifamily.
Yeah.
So there are some very successful, very sophisticated, investors and developers. And that's how I learned, because the people that I was hanging around that I work with, they were doing all kinds of different things. And most of them started either building houses or doing remodeling, either in commercial or residential, little strip centers, things like that, maybe some storage, this, that. Then they grew and grew and grew. And, maybe at some point you find something that scales quickly, like multifamily. Syndicating multifamily apartments scales very quickly. So yes, you can be extremely successful faster that way if you just focus on that one thing and scale it because of the existing business model. But as far as development goes, it doesn't really matter if you're developing an apartment complex for, $100 million or an office tower or a subdivision. The numbers, can scale easy in development. So it really depends on what you're doing.
Yeah. So I think we're actually going to end up agreeing. Which is going to be fun to watch you convert back, because really what I was talking about is I'm talking about the full-time employee, right? The person that has a day job. They're not in construction. They're not doing commercial. They're not looking at a plot of land and looking for highest and best use. They're like, dude, I already have a day job. I'm looking to add a rental, or maybe they're doing 4 flips a year. I stand by my number one thing. They got to focus, right? They have to focus on area. You can't learn San Jose, California, and Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina from Chicago, right? You've got to learn one area and get really focused. You've got to build your team in around that area. I think you got to pick the asset, right? I think doing a house is very different than a 10-unit apartment building, right? I think you've got to pick your thing. And I say that because you got to remember the people that I talk to, dollars probably are not their biggest constraint. It's time. Right? They're already sleeping 6 to 8 hours a day. They're already working 8 to 10 hours a day. They already have 2 to 3 hours a day of family responsibilities. So they're, and they have the 24-hour limit, just like you and I. So what I'm talking about focus is that person, right? And again, they're starting at 0. So I tell them all the time, what I want them to do is get such a focused list that they only are looking at 20 to 40 available active listings. And I want them to hit that. I want them to hit that every day, so they can start to figure out what's going on in their focused area. So does that help clarify where I'm coming from?
Yeah. So number one, focus is 100% of the game. So you have to focus. Number two, if you're trying to get started, pick one thing and get after it and get momentum going. And then once you have the opportunity and position to be able to do other things, then you can.
Yeah.
But I always tell everybody, hey, if you got something working for you, stick with that, blow that up, and don't take your eye off the ball. So, from that standpoint, yes, focus is 100% of the game. Now, one area where I will disagree, you're absolutely wrong. You don't know what you're talking about now. Just kidding. is, that you can't learn, the Arizona market from Chicago. You
Okay.
absolutely can. So
Yeah,
you don't have to be local, but you do have to pick a market, but you don't have to be in that market.
totally agree.
So once
Yes.
you understand real estate and you know how to evaluate markets, you can look at any market anywhere in the country, from anywhere in the country, actually anywhere in the world. So
Yeah.
you just need to understand how real estate is made up. It's hyper local. So it's all the way
Mhm.
down to the state, the city, the neighborhood, the block, the street, and the position on that street. So it's hyper local. I mean, all of that makes a difference. And you need to understand the demographics, and you understand the demand drivers, the metrics in terms of rents, values, inventory, all that kind of stuff. So all of that we'll agree on, but it doesn't have to be yours. But if you're in a market that's robust and there's
Mhm.
opportunity, start there. Many people want to start outside their market just because they think it's cheap.
Yeah.
The cheapest market isn't always the best market. And the best opportunity is not always with the cheapest houses. So
Agreed.
or property. So it just depends on what your strategy is, what you're trying to do. And it's easier to understand local because you can drive around, you can kind of see what's going on. So
Yeah.
to learn the fundamentals of real estate, period. But if you live out in the middle of farmland, Kansas, you gotta go somewhere because you're not gonna do anything there.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I may have my example was not clarified correctly. I absolutely believe you can learn markets. Like again, I think I said San Jose, Raleigh from Chicago. What I was trying to communicate is don't pick two. Comparing San Jose and Raleigh while your knowledge is Chicago is probably not the most efficient use of time. That's what I was trying to say. Pick one, right? If you're in Chicago, go
Mhm.
ahead, pick San Jose. If you're in Chicago, go ahead, pick Raleigh. I don't care, but pick one is what I
Right.
was
Yeah. Start with one. Yeah.
I was trying to say, but said poorly. Because again, I learned a market. I learned a market I'd never been in. I still have never spent the night in my market, which I've been in for 20 years. I mean, my market's 2.5 hours away. You can get a lot of places in 2.5 hours on an airplane, right? So
Yeah.
totally agree. I just don't suggest picking two in the beginning because I've seen people just spin their wheels. And next thing they're saying is like if they picked, let's just pick Cleveland, Ohio, and San Francisco, California, just because their price points are so different, and everybody will appreciate that. All the person we're talking about is Cleveland is cheap. Cheap's not the answer. Cheap. Lots of people go bankrupt with cheap. You got to look for the best deal, creation of value, down to the hyper local level. So you're so right in that aspect.
Yeah, yeah. And the key is, like you said, pick a market, pick a strategy,
Mhm.
pick a discipline, whether it's multifamily, commercial, office, storage, hospital, whatever it is, pick something in a market and go get a deal and
Yes.
start with one. And then momentum breeds momentum, success breeds success. How do you squash fear? By doing something, getting those little wins. Once you do that little thing, then you can do the next thing, and it just gets easier and easier and easier. You might be scared to death on that first one, but once it's done, you're like, well, that was nothing. It's just a piece of
Yeah.
real estate, you know. And if you start small, you don't have to start gigantic. Just start small to where if something does go wrong, it's not going to, it's not going to be the end of the world. And then work your way up. But just
Yeah.
start with something. I started with a lot flip. I mean, I bought 2 houses that I owned that I lived in, so I had some real estate experience. But my first deal was a lot flip, and then
Yeah.
it went from there. And then I started building little spec houses, then big spec houses, then land development, then so it just went on and on. And the more I did, the more comfortable I got. And then I had no fear, and I'm not afraid of anything now. I'll do whatever, and I
Yeah.
feel like I can do anything within my reasonable limits of what I know and what I feel what I know I can do. I'm not going to go play quarterback for Tampa Bay, and
Yeah.
take Tom
Somebody's got
Brady's
that
job.
job.
I can wish that all I want, and I can be positively thinking about that all I want, and I can try to manifest that all I want. It ain't gonna
Yeah,
happen.
ain't gonna happen. Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I've seen happen is when you, again, talking to the full-time employee who's got, 7 minutes a day to make positive progress. What will happen as you do your daily executions or you keep getting a little bit better is the market will almost open up and start telling you a story. And then that will empower you 3, 4, 5 years down the line to recognize value, right? Again, we started with houses. The first 4 years, every house was almost the same. It was either a 3 or 4 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 car garage, 1 story house on a 1/4 acre lot. That's all I bought. That's all I knew. But as the market opened up, as
Mhm.
that asset got expensive, we started going, okay, well, let's go small commercial. And our first commercial was a 5-unit building.
Mhm.
And they were all like little 600, 625 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. it was both the same and different, if that makes sense, right? It was still
Mhm.
rentals, but owning one bedroom, one bath, shared walls was a very different experience than a quarter acre house with no neighbors touching and all that. So
Yeah.
it's both the same and different. But then again, we grew up, right? We've done several investments or purchases over seven figures, and we never thought we would get there. But again, one market, know the market, it opened, it kind of started telling you that's expensive. Here's the value, go get it. And sometimes, we bought one, it went up, it got expensive. So we sold it and we moved stuff around. So if you do the work and you focus, too many people want to bounce around, right? I talked to them like, hey, I'm going to do Salt Lake City. I'm just making stuff up. And I talked to him in 2 weeks. It's like, Salt Lake City's expensive. I'm going to go to Austin, Texas. I'm like, dude, you've been there like 7 seconds. What are you doing? I mean, it takes you 90 days to figure out, a little area inside Salt Lake City. Stop bouncing around.
Yeah. Yeah. That, the key is, yeah. And, it's really funny. A lot of that is fear for people. A lot of people will use those things to not have to do anything, and they'll talk themselves out of stuff,
Got it.
versus focus, get it done, make something happen. And then some people are just flat out, ADD, and they can't focus, so it really depends, or they can't make up their mind what they want to do. So, the key is just pick something, get started, go do more of it. Or people feel like, wow, is this the one thing? Is this the right thing? Should I go here? Should I go there? Just get started, pick something and get after it.
Yeah. The other thing that I see, again, back to that fear concept, I hear so often, what's the best market? I'm
Mhm.
like, that's the wrong question. You've got to sharpen your skill first, right? The best market, that's opinions. You've got to create a skill. I believe real estate investing is a skill. It could be learned. Anybody can do it. It's not age related. Um, but yeah, I think it's the skill of the person that creates the deal and the value, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
do a deal in any market. It's not about
Yeah, you
finding the
can.
best
And,
market.
the best market, I mean, you could drill down, you could do the research and get the data, and you could find out, okay, what market has the highest rent growth? You could probably find that number.
Probably.
What market has the highest margins on a flip house? You could probably find that.
Yeah,
Which market selling the most new construction homes and has the most demand? So you can probably find those things, but to try to be able to do that and then go in there, yeah, I mean, that's a tough road there. But you do want to find good markets, so you
Hmm,
need positive net migration, you do need rent growth, you do
sure.
need housing demand and appreciating value. So there are some aspects of that you do need to understand and
For sure.
know before you go, because again, you don't want to go in a wheat field in the middle of Kansas and say, I'm going to develop the subdivision and everybody's going to come. I get that question a lot. Man, there's this land, it's cheap, it's 100 acres, and I'm like, what's around it? Cornfields.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not going to attract people there unless you're 10 minutes outside of the main city.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So again, I think that the best is what is back to your point is people use it as an excuse not to get started. I haven't found the
Mhm.
best. I haven't found the best. Yeah. I think there are things that make good markets, and those are kind of, again, they're all over the internet. You can go find out net migration, rent growth, all of that. So this has been a lot of fun this morning. I've enjoyed our conversations.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you
one
for
of
your
the
time.
best
Yep.
resources people ask me all the time, U-Haul.
Yes.
U-Haul puts out great data on migration patterns. So
Amen to
right
that.
now, Florida, I think, is leading everybody, but we'll
I think
see.
it is. Yeah, I think it is. Certainly on the East Coast. Everybody's going south. Thank you, man. This has been a fun week. Thanks, Greg.